Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another fabulous Monday Night Magic. It's April 10th, 2023. I can hardly believe it. And I am thrilled to welcome you here. I and Ken Close, we are your two favorite epigenetic geeks. I will stick to that from now till eternity because I'm guessing you guys don't know a lot of other epigenetic geeks. However, I did meet one on Bumble. Oh my God, yes. That one on Bumble. That's a dating service for those of you who don't know about these things. Yeah, All right, so tonight we are going to talk about the changing seasons, the circle of evolution, the evolution of change. You know, as we move into the spring season, coming out of the winter doldrums, coming out of that winter restful period and move into spring, it's an evolution. It's an evolution of change. It's an evolution of growth. It's a reawakening of the soul. And I think that in and of itself is why so many of us are on like this emotional roller coaster and feeling a wee bit tired. Not to mention there's been a whole lot of love energy out there with the holidays that we've had this past week and lots of family interactions and all that jazz. What do you think, my friend?
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. We're with of course that every time we have a change of seasons, one thing that I think some may discount is the actual change of its influence on the human body. I mean, we can't really be separate from a planet in which we live, right? And so every circadian rhythm unites us within a demographic. So some people are on maybe the West Coast, some on the East Coast, but the sun, as it moves across the land, as the Earth spins in its orbit, the influence on the people, the plants, the living items under that sun, it shines on all equally, doesn't it? And the folks in that demographic are influenced equally. So some, though, stay with the same behaviors, habits, perceptions that may have been from the summertime, and we're in the winter. And we talked about this on our last call, about how the winter solstice and the shortening of days, the exposure to light has an influence on the body, and we should change as well. We should change some of our behaviors and habits, no different than spring. So now the days are being longer, aren't they? Meaning we're exposed to light for a longer period of time. And to be honest, the optic nerve is still sensing light. So no different than the wintertime, it's where it senses less light. In the springtime, when it senses more light, or longer lengths of span of light, then these systems that it regulates are just elongated, right? I mean, in other words, we're in daytime more. So there's over 400 systems that go on and off within our body, right? Hormonal exchanges, organ activations, digestive processes, all these things that go on and off based on one thing, the signal of light, right? With the optic nerve. And now we're in a different space, or different timing sequence with that light. So we have to adapt. I highly encourage everyone to adapt. Maybe it's light later in your demographic and you're used to going to bed at a certain time, right? Experiment with this. I encourage you to experiment with this. Once upon a time, we didn't have artificial light, right? I mean, we had fires when we discovered that. So we use that as an artificial light. But the point is that we still didn't really, we still lived by the rising and setting of the sun, our solar influence. So we need to really address that. And this is where we're coming into the changing of the seasons and the change of life again as this influence. And we're going to talk about, what I want to talk about is essentially a cycle, kind of a circle, right? A circle of change or a circle of influence. And all of us are changing, right? All the time. And this is why, again, we're Lori's in her coaching programs. She's working with people that are trying to navigate the changes, right? And then get them and maximize some of the things that are available to them and minimize some of the unserving ways, right? This is where a good coach comes in. Not so much to actually give you a whole bunch of new stuff, but let's help manage what's not serving you. I mean, my whole engineering brain says that when we start to build principles around things, we can apply it anywhere in our life, no matter where it is and what it's addressing. We can apply it anywhere in our life. And part of this this application process is to create a built-in obsolescence, making something obsolete, right? I mean, if we build something that's better than what we used to do, then what we used to do becomes obsolete. So, however, we don't necessarily know anything better until we get this aha moment. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about that. Does that make sense, Lori, what we're talking about here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's managing this energy. I mean, Ken and I were talking earlier today. We're all experiencing this, right? We're all feeling it. We're all experiencing various emotions. We're experiencing various levels of tiredness. And oh, well, it's Monday, April 10th. The show goes on. It's Monday Night Magic. So if you're tired, go for a walk, drink a cup of tea, do something to energize yourself, put on some music, dance a little, get the body moving. Because once you get the body moving, the mind gets moving, because it's all interconnected. And that, I think, is honestly the biggest challenge that most people have. It's like they're exhausted, they're tired, they're drained, they're emotional. They don't feel like it. And yet society and our third dimensional reality expects the show to go on.
Absolutely. It's in that model. And what I like to do again is paint a picture. Let me give you the power back. And most of you already know this. You may have heard me talk about this, but the environment signals the gene. Okay, so we are a culmination of trillions of cells, and each one has a code. Each one has a code, and that code is a genetic expression, right? And it's the outside environment. So look around where you are right now. Just take a gander, and this environment you're in is signaling the gene expression of every cell to the tune of 800,000 per second. It's triggering it. Now, how's it doing that? So our sensory information is coming in through the optic nerve, like I told you, which looks at light or lack of light. What we hear, what we smell, what we taste, and there's certain senses that don't go off even when we're asleep. I mean, we hear still while we're sleeping. And how many guys, those of you that are a parent, the baby's cry, right? What it does. Or if you've ever been anywhere near smoke, like if you've ever been around a fire or camping or something like that, you still smell that, right? You smell certain things, something that's off, and it wakes you up. So these senses are on all the time. I'm taking in content, and to that tune of 800,000 cells per second, that content is brought into our awareness, this brain of ours. And the brain then maps out what it means, because at one point you didn't know what smoke smelled like, or you didn't know what a baby sounded like. You were the baby making the sound. You didn't know what it sounded like so much. So you didn't have a map in the brain. There really wasn't an assigned meaning to these inputs. And so as we continue to move forward, we assign meaning to these inputs, and they start to then have influence on the internal biology. Great. And this is a good thing, because that's what helps us survive. And we have to be able to survive in our environment. As we're building these designs for change, the first thing is to become aware of something, to become aware of a new smell, a new desire, some input from the outside world, or to be aware of just something within you you're just done with. And how many of you have in your past said, I'm done with this? and the quote unquote this doesn't have to be huge, but there's something that you're just done with. So the first step is becoming aware, right? Aware of something we don't want anymore. And then we start to go to work with this awareness, understanding of it will draw in some content. Awareness or an idea starts to give the brain an activity. It gives it something to do. A thought is synaptic connections firing. And when we fire information, these synaptic connections, when they fire, they wire together and they become a better pathway for information, or for energy, I should say. Now, anytime we have a firing of any synaptic connection, that energy flow creates a magnetic signal. And the more of those synaptic connections that we have around a thought, because not only is it just a thought in our mind, but then we make up things around the environment in which it took place, the people in which we were associated with, the conversation or the smells, the flavors, all the content around this thought. As the brain works in images, everyone, right? You think I'm kidding? I'm not. If I said the word orange right now, don't visualize an orange. Do not visualize it. Come on, you guys, stop it, right? It's impossible. It's impossible. You're going to, to some degree, you're going to see an orange, right? So it's a very suggestive network. And so this is the environment. You heard my voice say this word that you recognized. It was in English. We all understood English. And then your mind formulated a picture and boom. Now the energy and the magnetic expression of orange is transmitted out into your environment, right? All of us. So we just did that as a coherent signal. And so now there's a bunch of people out there thinking about oranges and they have no idea why, right? Because we transmitted a magnetic signal that went out, and their own reticular activating system, their awareness, decodes that content, that magnetic content, and then it induces a signal in their brain. Okay, this is how the environment, including the people around you, starts to give information into your brain. And then you just think it's your idea. You just think it's something that is random. But a true idea is something you're kind of really unfamiliar with. A gift from God, or a gift from the universe, we call them downloads. I like to call them downloads, are just something like, where'd that come from, right? An orange is familiar, but some quantum law that is not invented yet is not really familiar. I get this kind of stuff. So, you write this stuff down. So this awareness piece, the better we get at just listening, we first decide there's something we don't want. And then we build thought processes around maybe what we do want, essentially creating an obsolescence of what we don't want. I'll caution you, because a lot of times when we come up with something we don't want, I'm just sick and tired of this, we stew on it, right? We sit there and rehearse it. And that's the same thing as thinking of an orange. It's exactly the same thing, because that synaptic connection associated with what you didn't want continues to fire, and it becomes stronger. It has an energy of its own. So when we decided we're done with this, we're completely finished with some feeling or instance that we just are done with. Normally it's some influence of a bad situation. It's very necessary to go to the next step of creating something you do want. This is the next step, is to create something you do want. And the safest place to make that up is in your mind. This daydream, right? This mind dream, this creation it's safe. Nobody even knows what you're thinking about, by the way. They can't really read your mind. They may read the magnetic energy that's coming out of you, but they're going to think it's their own idea. So that's okay. So create this image of what you do want, not just an image, but an entire story of what you do want. The moment you make the story, because when you're telling someone something from your past, you're telling a story, right? I'll give you a little hint. A lot of times this memory of the past that you're rehearsing and describing to someone, about 50% of it's not even true. Our mind fills in blanks and things we forget. So it's okay to make up our own stories inside, true or not. The body doesn't know the difference. So in this case, when we're making up something that we do want to counteract anything we don't want, make it up to its most elaborate stage. And I think you guys are familiar with this. I mean, there's ways of doing that with vision boards and mental rehearsals, journaling, all kinds of ways. Okay, so that's step 2. Step 3 is starting to research the details of your desire. And the more we research, curiosity is this energy that gains its own momentum. It really does. It gains an amazing amount of momentum. The more curious we are about something, the mind wants to solve problems. Right? I mean, how many of you have ever, in the middle of the night or during a dream, you got an answer to something? Right? You were dreaming and you got an answer, and you wake up and write it down. It's like, that's what and you go back to sleep perhaps, or if you don't wake up and write it down, you forget. But you get an answer in the times in which you're not busy in the mind, aka sleeping. Sometimes it's in the shower, sometimes it's driving a car, some of those redundant things. So you've got a desire for some change. You've got this new story that you're making up. The other part of a desire to change is alongside with the story is we tend to research how, don't we? I want to change something. I want to learn something new. I'm interested in some new healing modality or some new thing. I start to gain education. So we go to workshops, we buy books, we study the content, we start to build new information in the brain. These build these aha moments. You go to a workshop, perhaps. I love it. I've been to many of Dr. Joe's workshops. I'm telling you, if you have the opportunity to go there, or if you've already gone there, you know what I'm talking about. If you have the opportunity to go, definitely put that on your bucket list, because there's a lot of change that goes on there. And the information that comes in makes total sense and starts to connect the dots. So you get these aha moments. And an aha moment, or reading a book, listening to a lecture, whatever, they're all categorized in the aha moment, because it's new information you didn't have before. These aha moments upregulate the nervous system in one instance, right? The moment you read an article and you believe it, that instantaneously upregulates your entire nervous system. Your knowledge base now has a new perception. It happened in 1 second or 1 instant, or however long it took you to read that piece of information. The nervous system is electrical. As I told you before, the synaptic connections, the firing of the energy, the nervous system is electrical. So it can change on a heartbeat. It can change in one moment, in one email, in one particular voice message. Because how many times have you ever had bad news, right? And the millisecond before the bad news, you felt one way. The millisecond after, did you feel different? This is what I'm talking about, how the nervous system has an influence instantaneously. The difference here is, now again, so this is the aha part. The step 2, you're still learning, you're building the story, you're navigating information, you're researching, you have an aha moment. It's part of it. The nervous system becomes upregulated in a second. Now the next phase, the third phase of this journey of change, is a biological restructuring. Okay, this is where the challenge comes in. This is where you've heard of the dark night of the soul comes in, because this nervous system that triggers instantly and this new information, it doesn't matter if it's good information or bad information. When I say good news or bad news, a learning, an answer to my challenge, or a new challenge, it doesn't matter. It works the same, because the next part of the biological reorganization is a slower process, because we have organs, tissues, cells, systems within this body that are subjected to space and time. It's matter, mass, material, right? The nervous system is just energy. It has an ability to change instantly, but the body takes a little bit longer, cell by cell, to the tune of what? 800,000 per second. It reorganizes. Okay. So it's a bit of a slower process. Now, when this new information comes in, upregulates the nervous system, and it is a good thing. In other words, I just had this amazing aha moment and I see things differently. The landscape of my life instantly changes, right? Then this information starts to shift the cells, the communications it has with the body. This is that slower process. Sometimes, not sometimes, actually all the time, there is going to be a release of some sort. In other words, if we are looking at releasing trauma, or we are sick and tired of the influence of trauma or disorder or disease, and we get some new information, how we're able to overcome that, and the body's starting to listen to this information, and we're rewriting the cell structures, there's a detox process that goes on, because however old you are, all of that information is still built into the cell structure. And when we have a genetic reorganization, then those cells have to reorganize, and they do it to the tune of 800,000 per second. But again, there's 100 trillion cells here. It takes a bit, many seconds. If you just do the math, it's a lot. So this reorganization can feel uncomfortable. When we're doing I've been doing this Dr. Joe work for about 10 years. And in 2018, he introduced a 7-day protocol, went from a 5-day to a 7-day protocol. And those 2 extra days changed a lot of the depth of change within the human body. The mind reorganized so well, and the nervous system accepted it, believed, and surrendered so efficiently that the cell structures in the bodies, mine included, didn't have a chance to resist. And this change happened very quickly. And so the detox, and you're familiar, if you've ever done a deep tissue massage or some detox process, if you're not doing a lot of good self-care, right? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. If you're not doing a lot of good self-care, then it can be painful, because the toxic burden that's released from the cells, the muscles, the tissues in your body from a deep tissue massage, when they're released from the fascia, from the fat content of the body, from any of the tissues, when it's released, it's put back in your bloodstream. All right. This is how we eliminate it, right? This is why we have systems that do so. But if we don't have a proper hydration, or we don't have proper movement, we don't have proper support to this elimination system, then those toxins settle back into the body somewhere, right? They won't go back where they were, but they will settle somewhere back in the body. And a lot of times, actually not a lot of times, all the time, they will settle in a place in your body in which have the biggest trauma already, because they fit, they magnetically fit. And so if you've got a bad back, if you have an injury in the shoulder, if you have some neck issue, some issue like that, it's interesting how it will amplify, because that's the way it works. So this is the detox process, this 3rd stage of release, which is a biological upgrade. And the biological upgrade can be what I like to call the dark night of the soul. Because it can feel like you just got hit with the biggest flu, the biggest tsunami, the biggest headache, the biggest pain in the whatever. And you will think you're going to die. I mean, sometimes it feels so horrible. It's like, and here's the way you know it's happening. You'll know it's happening because it doesn't make sense. You go, I was not bad yesterday or 2 days ago. Where did this come from? Like this pain in the neck or this pain in the shoulder. I didn't actually do something. I wasn't lifting weights. I wasn't gardening. I didn't strain anything. There's a lot of times that it doesn't match. It doesn't make sense that this amplitude of agony or discomfort in the body doesn't necessarily match what you've just got done doing, unless you know that you just got done doing some release of burden, some change, and you've really released it in a way that is final. So that third step, that detox, or that shifting in the body, the biology, that's a big one. And I've been through it so many times, I can recognize it now, but when it's the first time, if it's you, be compassionate with yourself. Give yourself a lot of patience and grace. If you know somebody that has been saying, I'm changing this, I'm sick and tired of that, and suddenly they come down with this illness or they're sick or something, be compassionate with them, support them, help them understand that this is a good thing. It's a natural process of release in this toxin. And here's where we're going to talk about the self-care protocol, because this is really important when we're making these changes and shifts. And you may have heard me talk about this before, because it's no different than if you're using the Healy Microcurrent programs. But the self-care protocol is number one is hydration. Number one is so important. We're more water than we are matter in material cell structure. We're more water. So hydration is super important. And hydration is not just water. Hydration is also minerals. Our body is a mineral engine. Okay. And the reason we have plant life on this planet, I mean, if we could just go and eat dirt, we get all kinds of minerals, right? But we can't, because our body doesn't digest dirt. But the plants take the nutrients from the dirt, move it up through the plant, and give us the fruit of the vegetable that our body does understand. And so that's what we do. A lot of living plants and fruits and things like that that are filled with minerals. Okay. So while hydration, number one, and a proper hydration, just an equation, as a basic equation, is half your body weight in ounces of water per day. Half your body weight in ounces of water. If you're 100 pounds, that's 50 ounces a day. Okay. And that doesn't mean that you do it all in the evening because you forgot. Throughout your day, try to spread it out. Half your body weight in ounces of water every day. Number two is to move. Movement is critical, because that activates the lymphatic system, right? We have a heart that pumps the blood, but the lymphatic system, this is operated by the contractions of our muscles, right? And that muscular contraction, the reason that the muscular contraction, or I should say, the reason the muscles have a 64% influence on our immune system is because of the way that it moves our lymphatic system, right? That's why, because it's responsible for moving that system. And that's how our body moves nutrients in and toxic burden and waste out of the cells, back and forth, back and forth. So movement, and movement is whatever turns you on. If you like to dance, if you like to do yoga, if you like to walk, if you like to roll around the grass, that actually covers two things at once, by the way, if you do it naked, because that's grounding and movement. So the point is, because that's number three. Number three is grounding, but movement. So do it however you wish, but do it. And this is 15 to 20 minutes a day. You don't have to do it all day, but it's, again, as often as you feel like it's necessary, 15 to 20 minutes minimum. Number three, grounding. And grounding has huge aspects. Earthing is a beautiful, beautiful way of reorganizing this ionic fields within our bodies, grounding ourselves. Earthing is great. That just means bare skin on bare earth, right? Doesn't work when you're on concrete or pavement. Bare skin on bare earth. Now there's apparatus out there. You can put sheets on your bed that have these grounding circuits that connect into your house, and they work well. All that stuff works. There's also meditative practice that helps you to ground. You can ground your energy. And I do this too when I don't have the opportunity. You can ground yourself through meditation, because when you are extending the roots of your body through your feet into the core of the earth in meditative state, you will discharge the body. It works amazing. You can look them up. You can find grounding meditations out there, all you wish. So time in nature also goes along with grounding. All right. And number four is breathing. Breathing is another part of the excretion system of our body, right? The way that we excrete, the normal ways, right? Well, we think about going to the bathroom, but there's also sweating. There's also breath. right? So through our skin, through our breath, all those things excrete. So breathing is critical. A lot of times folks breathe on only half of their lungs. And I like to use this little analogy. If you go up and you touch your collarbones and then you reach all the way down and find the lowest rib on your body, that's how big one lung is, right? And people typically breathe just real shallow, just a little bit. You want to fill those lungs all the way up. So you're not only expanding upward, you're expanding outward, and you're expanding behind you, right? Because the lungs are omnipresent right here. So you want to make sure they expand full. So deep, full breaths. And I encourage this every rotation of your breath. If we were to sit, in fact, I think this would be a good thing we do, maybe Lori, on one of our calls here, is to do a breath rate count. It's a 1 minute thing. We can even do it at the end of this call or towards the end. We just set a timer for 1 minute and everyone just relaxes in their space and they just breathe their normal rate and you count each repetition. So an inhale to an exhale is 1. Inhale to an exhale is 2. And we count that. And I'll give you a little information about what state your body's in based on the number that you come up with. It's kind of fun. So breathing. All right. And the last one, number 5. This one's, I think, really critical in terms of also creating a story or a blueprint, is to find a reason to fall in love with life. Have a courtship with life. Lori was talking about a dating site. Date your life. Go on a date with your life, right? Fall deeply in love with your life. Why? Because it's a blessing. It is a blessing. You know, it was 400 trillion to 1 that you were even born. Those are the odds. If you look at the feast and the famine and the historical chaos and war and disorder and how many sperm it took to get there, all of that into account, there was the ratio of you living and you not, you being here and you not, is amazing. So it's a blessing. It's an honor to be here. And I am honored to be here with you because I don't take that lightly. I take it, very gratefully. So that's the self-care, those 5. Okay. And the reason for that is, again, to balance the body, help it bring back its body or its balance so that you can get through this dark night of the soul. So does that make sense? Laura, you want to add anything in here?
Oh my goodness, where do I begin? Where do I begin? I mean, the number one thing I see with my clients is, as you're going through a dark night of the soul, as you're creating intentions for the way you want your life to be, and you're letting go of those things that you don't like, number one issue is those old ways of being in the world are your comfort zone. And so even though you're walking out there and you're saying, I'm going to create this and it's going to be magnificent and I'm going to change my life because I don't want to be in this anymore, the resistance that comes up will be endless. So if you really, 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 really want it, I highly encourage you to be putting the intention into the coaching module and run that all night long. When your subconscious or when your conscious mind is sleeping, reprogram your subconscious. That's what's going to get you there faster, because I've spent 20 years watching people stay stuck. And, I usually meet with my clients every 2 weeks and I get back to them 2 weeks later and they'd have had this great intention and all this good energy and all this, they were going to do this and this and this and this. And 2 weeks later, I don't know what happened. I just couldn't do it. I couldn't, and they feel bad. Rightfully, I mean, we all would feel bad, but the problem is 90 to 98% of the time you are reacting based upon subconscious programs. And those old programs some of them are from your ancestors. Some of them are from past lives. They're in there so deeply rooted that if you've got one of these little devices, which most of you do that are on this call, if you've got a Healy and you don't have the coaching module, get it. If you have the coaching module, use it. Absolutely, positively use it. And the other thing that I would say is every single program that you're running, we forget this sometimes, but Healy's an AI device, right? It's artificial intelligence. And the intention that you go into setting this program with, any of the programs, whatever you're going to run, whether it's a scan that you're running or you ran the scan and now you're going to go hook up the microcurrent bracelets and run a program. Intention is everything. Intention is everything. Your intention supersedes whatever the intention was of the person who created the program in the first place, because you're the one in control now. Reverend Lindsay was asking about the intention of water. I believe I'm trying to find it in the chat here.
Yeah, can you offer some wisdom on water activation, purification of negative info? Yes.
Yeah. It's all, what is your intention when you're running that program? What do you want to see happen? Intentions, creating intentions, writing intentions, holding intentions are one of the hardest challenges most people have when they're using their healing. And it's because they have forgotten that they have that co-creative ability. They're so stuck in the shoulds. I should think this, I should think that, I should do this, I should do that, that they aren't really realizing that they have the ability to create their own intentions every single moment of every single day. And what you're focusing on is what you're going to attract more of. Now, when you put a program in the Healy and you're asking that quantum sensor to send that into your field, whether it's through microcurrent or scalar waves or into the information field, any of it is powered by intention. This is so important that I have now created a 2-hour class that I taught one last week. I'm teaching one next week just on, it's called the art of writing intentions. It's all about creating intentions. How do I do it? How do I really do it and stay focused with it? And it's just so powerful. And you guys are that powerful and you have that power. I'm telling you, trying to do this stuff without the use of biohacking is so much harder. And there's no one here in this room tonight that doesn't have an even greater power because we have access to this amazing, amazing, incredible device.
And then, and what Lori said there, I want you guys to, there's something that she said that is kind of a key thing, holding an intention. So the question, Reverend Lindsay, around the purification of negative info in water, inanimate objects will hold an intention last placed on it until replaced. Now it gets lower and lower and lower and lower, but think about it. It's no different than an object in motion remains in motion unless acted upon by another force, right? So this is the same thing. If we place an intention in water, or if we suspect some body of water or content or whatever has a negative energy to it, then all we do as these powerful intenders is to place a different one in it. We can replace it, okay? So the strength in which some intention was built kind of needs the strength in which a new one is installed. If your intention is like, well, maybe I want this, or I don't know if I do want that. Do you think there's very much power in that? No. But when we say, I am XYZ, I am, and I put some oomph to it, and we can place those words into water. Well, of course, with Healy, we can place that frequency into water. We can crank up the amplitude and place it in there. And then it reorganizes and rewrites the intention that's in that entity. It doesn't matter if it's your water, if it's your food, or if it's your car. Why do you think this amazing carpenter once upon a time would encourage everyone to sit prior to their food and bless the food, right? This process did a couple of things. One is it put a new intention into the food. I'm grateful. Thank you. You know, I am humbled by this presence. And number two, it asked you to sit down and place your awareness on something other than the stressors that got you there. So it moved the body from stress response or sympathetic into rest and digest or parasympathetic, just by praying, just by giving gratitude, just by giving praise for the meal, just by sitting for a moment. Okay, so this is important. So holding an intention is critical when we're starting to, or we're trying to change some aspect of ourselves. Holding this intention, as Lori said, you know, you need some tools, you need some backup, because our mind wanders. I mean, yours don't, I know, but you may know somebody whose mind does wander. Mind wanders. And so it's important to have something to hold us focused, to hold us steady. Okay. And so these intentions are big. And this is part of this reorganizational process, is that as we are moving through the release, the detox period of our change, and believe me, trust me, if it's a condition that has been there a while, then it's going to take a minute to get rid of, and there's going to be a bit of a surrendering. And on the other side of that, there'll be a moment in which you wake up or you see the light. Maybe you felt like crap for 3 days and you've been in bed, or you've had to work through it and you're just agonizing. But there's a moment when it feels like the light starts to shine brighter, right? And you can start to feel the change and the shift in the body. Here's how you can recognize this is happening, is that what you look at no longer looks the same. The outside world didn't change, but you did. And now when you view it through your senses, this reorganization changes the taste of food, the sounds of music, the optical coloring of things. It changes every aspect of your sensory perception. This is how you know that you've literally liberated something from your past. So I want you to take into thought about it. It's happened to me more than once. And it's interesting when our intention is big enough and our surrender is strong enough and our faith is allowing it, our belief and our trust has allowed it unconditionally, then your senses will change. Your craving for something will go away. This is the body's beauty. Remember what I said, it wants to survive. And if what you've been doing has been down-regulating your health, the body already knows. It already knows. It's precognitive. You know what precognitive is? It means that the body reads your mind. And if you want the proof of this, just stand up from where you are right now. Just if you're driving, don't do this. Wherever you are, just stand up. And when you stand up, did you get lightheaded? No. And the reason is because the body was reading your mind. And it's like, okay, you're going to stand up. I need to shoot a little adrenaline into the system to give oxygen and blood to the brain. So when you stand up, you don't get lightheaded. This is proof right now. Now, if you stood up and got lightheaded, there's reasons for that. And that's because sometimes if we're sick, if we haven't eaten properly, we're tired, the body can't overcome our own abuse. I'm sorry. I mean, it tries. But if you're in natural states and you stand up and you don't get lightheaded, that means the body was reading your mind. And it said, I got you ready. So you didn't stand up and pass out. So it reads your mind all the time. So when you are kind of dabbling with an intention, the body's like, yeah, he's not going to do it today. Nah, I don't believe a word you're saying. And you're sitting there eating bonbons, watching television, going, I'm going to get exercising. And the body's like, whatever, right? It's not believing a single word. Now you put the bonbons down, you jump up, you go in, you start headed, you start headed for the exercise bike or whatever it is. Your body already knew that. And it believes you. So this is where this change comes in. When we're serious, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and when you're done with whatever challenge has plagued you and you're ready to make it obsolete, and you say, and you make that declaration, you create that intention, right? I'm done with this. and that aha moment begins, that educational process starts to download, you will get things that you didn't even expect. Trust me. And I'm sure you've experienced this. When you say, I'm done with this, all of a sudden the next day or that day, some information pops up randomly. You think it's randomly. It's this magnetic signal attracted right to you. And you dive into that information and it becomes an answer, or that person that comes to you becomes an answer to assisting you through your intention work. Okay. So that phase of shift of change is critical. And keeping on that, staying within that daydream of that intention. This is all circular. You see how the circle comes around? Because the moment you look out into your life after this shift and things look different, the world outside has not changed, but the way you see it has. Your senses have changed. And what that does is it guides you to move away from some things. Again, your cravings go away. Those people don't match. You realize, well, I can't believe how much they complain. I can't believe how much I notice they complain, right? Did they always complain like that? It's not, they didn't change. You did. And so you move away from that. Now, it's important that you stay with that intention. It's okay to release people, bless them and release them. They are not you, and they don't, if who they are and what they represent do not belong in your future, let go of that past. It's important that we let go of that past. It's this present moment that we get the opportunity to see what fits and what doesn't fit. And if we see what doesn't fit and we move it from our past into our future, we haven't changed, have we? So it's okay to bless and release people. It's okay to bless and release objects, behaviors, all kinds of stuff. So this is the power of change, but it doesn't come without some work. It doesn't come without some notice and some dark night of the soul. As your body becomes this new structure, the nervous system is now firing properly and equally with the body, and the body is firing properly and equally with the nervous system. You get energized. And this is a new level of you. You won't go back. You can't unexperience that. You can't unexperience that. I say this all the time. You can't untaste the orange juice, right? And you won't unexperience it. And so this becomes a new level of you. You may slide back down to some of the old behaviors, but you will not go back down to the bottom. So don't think it wasn't worth it. It was, to some degree. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And, you know, I have to go back to running that coaching module overnight. What's going to happen? You're going to wake up. You're not only going to see things differently, you're going to react differently. Mm-hmm. You're literally going to be like, who just said that? You, like, the same thing that happened the day before or last week will happen, and you will react entirely differently. And it's through that intense power of intention. And I got to tell you, in my group coaching programs, what we started doing is we go into this daydreaming state, we create the intention from that place. And then I put them into a guided visualization often to really feel what it's going to feel like when they get there. And then we run the coaching module and we find all the stuff that is in the way, all those complex limiting beliefs. And then we run creative homeopathy while we're in that state with that powerful intention. Oh my God, I cannot even tell you how high those numbers are. Now, this is scanning 350 some programs for the top 5 issues that are in the way of achieving that outcome that you're looking for. And we're getting numbers in the 85 to 90 percentile of things that are really in the way. So layering that on top of it, or as Sharda asked, if you don't have the coaching module, what do? Creative homeopathy. If you just do that, that will give you a huge shift as well. Mm-hmm.
So there are some programs, by the way. So let's talk about that for a minute, between the difference between running things with the Blue Dot app, right, which is the resonance or the aura module. And I saw a question there about the aura module versus running it with the microcurrent, the IMF programs, either microcurrent or magnetics with the coil. So when we are running something from the information field, which is the resonance analysis, right? We've done either a resonance analysis or an aura analysis, and now we have frequencies based on that analysis to align this body. Okay, so those frequencies, whether you're running it from the aura module or you're running it from the resonance module, the Healy hardware is sending a signal out of the device into the field. And those signals are the exact same signals that's coming out of it when you're running the microcurrent with the wires. Okay. The opposite is not true. When you are running the Blue Dot or the resonance analysis, there is no microcurrent coming out of the device. There's no microcurrent coming out of the device. So don't hook the leads up and think it's doing anything. It's not. But when you are running the pink dot, the microcurrent is coming out of the leads and it is sending the frequencies into the field at the same time. All right. So when you're wearing it, and the proof of that is look at the Bioenergetic defense page, right? The Bioenergetic defense page says just click the Healy on your pocket somewhere and run the program, right? It doesn't say to hook up the leads or anything. It says you can, but you don't have to. So this is, again, just understand the differentiation so that when we're running things from the resonance and the aura analysis, those are frequencies going into the field. The person, AKA you, the client, is the intention, right? The program already has you built in there. So whatever scan you've done, aura or resonance, you are the person being scanned. You're the entity. You are, instead of a GPS, it's a UPS. It's the universal positioning person. It's the universe. It's narrowed it down to just you. And now all that content, those frequencies are going out omnidirectionally. Yes, they're infusing into your body in the physical form in this spot because I'm wearing it, but also it's moving that information into the blueprint, the information field, right? The quantum field. This is where the intelligence of all life is. And if you don't believe anything about the intelligence of life, well, just ask this question of yourself. What is dividing my cells right now? What is keeping my heart beating right now? What is that? Can I stop my cells from dividing right now? Can I stop my body from digesting right now? Can I stop these processes that are part of this divine information field? No. This is the same field in which all life, in fact, all molecular structures are held together by, all the way down to the atomic structure. It's held together by this divine intelligence. And when you're sending frequency out, it's interfacing to that intelligence infinitely. Okay. So it's blanketing the entire universe because this information is connected by one thread that's unified amongst the entire universe. And this is the energy field. So that's why we need you as the client to be put into the system specifically so it knows exactly where to send this content. It's still going to me, still going to Lori, still going to all you guys. Every Healy that's out there, this is why we want to put 100 trillion Healys in the world, because it does not send a signal out there that is not beneficial to life, not just humankind, but life. Okay. So when you run your Healy, you are supporting the entire species, the entire life force. And when you run it, whether it be through the aura module or the resonance module, doesn't matter. It's being sent directly to your field in the information field, which is assigned to you. Here's the caveat. It's upregulating that field signal, or what I call the blueprint, in that one moment. The moment you start running it, it instantaneously. Now people go, how long do I run those frequencies? A millisecond if you want, because upregulated in a second. But the longer you do it, the longer you as a host in space and time can be aware that it's happening for you. Does that make sense? In other words, if you run it for a millisecond, do you think does your mind say that there's much value in that? Not much. But if you think, well, I've been running it for 25 hours, your mind thinks there's a lot of benefit in that. So that's a placebo effect. It's like, absolutely, it's working. It's already worked millisecond ago and 25 hours ago. So here's the point of my rant here is that when the information field is upregulated, that is a perfect blueprint, a perfect signature, untainted, fixed of all flaws. When it comes down to solidify into matter, it has to pass through a consciousness. Whose consciousness? Right? Our consciousness, which is the same consciousness that messed it up in the first place. So it's like, okay. So we need to start allowing our consciousness to shift just as much as our body, a belief structure. If you believe in something and it has kept you held hostage or aside from your healing, don't you think it's time to give it up? I say yes. And so I believe that when a piece of information is revealed to you from the resonance or the aura scan, don't question it. Don't analyze it. Just accept, believe, and surrender, because it's not going to hurt you. I promise you, if you think it's going to hurt you, then that's probably the problem with your health right now, because fear is running your life. Fear. Believe me, I feel it. I feel it.
There's only two emotions. At the end of the day, it's fear and love.
Exactly.
So that's always the question to ask yourself. Am I in a state of fear, or am I feeling a state of love? And if you're making a decision or taking action from a fear-based standpoint, you are only going to attract at that level. It's that simple. So you've got to do whatever you can do to reel your emotions back in, get recentered, and find the place of love. Because there is always a gift in strange wrapping paper, whatever's going on around you. So find it and reframe it. And in my coaching program, we do this thing called connecting questions. And we literally have a list of 20 things that I have people plaster on the wall so that they start to learn, okay, is that true? Is that what I really want to say? Is that going to happen? What are the possibilities? And just keep reframing it and reframing it and reframing it until you get to that place of love.
Absolutely. And thank you, Dawn, by the way. She says, I love running it for the collective. If we all did that, believe me, just think about the implication. When we're running it for ourselves, just the intention of like, hey, this is for everybody, right? As a collective, I'm just going to do it for everybody. You know, that's also another power of sending that wave out there. So as Lori was saying, that this it's critical that we are reorganizing in many ways. So the last piece of what I don't want to keep you guys, I want to respect this hour, is what programs, you know. So we talked about the resonance and the aura and its implication into the change in our field, right? So the other side of this is the microcurrent and the coil. And so when we are looking at these bodies and they're changing, we've upregulated the nervous system. Now the systems, organs, and cells are starting to change, and we're feeling this burden of release, and we're feeling this toxic detox. The microcurrent, folks, is probably the highest level of effectiveness. And if there's some reason you can't use microcurrent, it's okay. I'm just saying that this is a tangible, three-dimensional rule. right? So when we connect the microcurrent to the body and we're connected with the wristbands or the sticky pads or whatever, and we're running that microcurrent into our body, because it's the body in space and time that is subjected to our change, our detox. So these microcurrent programs really enhance and help ATP production, amino acid the process, as well as protein synthesis. And so this enhances our recovery. And there are programs here that we want to talk about that will help you through this process. And they're a plethora, but there's a few here that we want to go over a little bit. Lori, you want to talk about those ones that we were talking about earlier?
Absolutely, because I typed them all out, right?
I know you. Well, the reason is because we're looking at what's the process the body's going through. It's a release, right? So there's a detox process, and whenever we are releasing something, there's also then a recovery process. So it's a circular process I wanted to talk about and show you how that full circle comes around.
Right.
And then, so that's why, there we go. So you tell us about those programs.
Okay. So some of them are obvious, right? Like the well-being programs and the mental balance programs and the soul cycle programs. All of the mental balance programs would fall into this category. And soul cycle, we picked our top 4: acceptance, serenity, inner balance, and happy. Very important to help shift the mood, because we want you to get out of those lower base vibrational emotions as quickly as possible so that you can get into a more stable state so that you can attract at a higher level. And then the less obvious ones are the ones for like the lymphatic system, to help you with that detox process, right? Because you're not just detoxing a thought or a belief, you're detoxing at the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels simultaneously. So in Meridians II, there's one for lymphatic system. Digital nutrition on page 3 has one also. And then we want to support the immune system as we're doing this. So we want to run defense, which is, I believe, Bioenergetic Harmony 1. Rebalance, which is in Power of 3. I mean, honest to God, Marcus made that. It's 102 minutes long, and it helps you rebalance your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual immune systems. I never knew we had 4 until he created that program. So I try to run that one at least once a week, or specifically like I was traveling last week. So I ran it as soon as I got home, just to rebalance my whole system. And let's not forget the old favorite, one that came out in March of 2020, Bioenergetic Support. I mean, it's designed to really boost your immune system on so many levels.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So think about this one, the mental balance page, guys, ladies, gentlemen, everybody out there. There's one that is probably one of my favorites. And here's why. As we start to make these changes, what happens is our heart opens, right? We start to feel a little safer in our lives. We start to overcome some trauma and past experiences. And when we feel safe, the heart opens. And people say that the eyes are the window of the soul. Actually, the heart is the window for the soul. The wider the heart opening, the wider the gaze of the soul, and it can literally see better and help navigate you through your life, your purpose, your desires, your connections, all of those things. The wisdom of us lives in the soul, hundreds, if not millions of years old, right? Many incarnations over this journey. This is one of them. And it's our soul that has the experience and the wisdom. And so if we open the heart, the soul gets a better, wider gaze. And so in that mental balance page, there's one called Soul Wellbeing, right? Soul Wellbeing energizes our connection to our soul. Soul Wellbeing. It's one of my favorites. I run it like at least a few times a week. And so some of the experiences I've had over the last, just recently, this opening, this acceptance, and this better awareness has just been growing because I look at the programs I've been adjusting and running more of. And it's like, oh, no wonder I'm getting this wisdom, these downloads. I write them out. If you guys are on my Facebook page, you'll see it. Sometimes there'll be some label at the top, the dance, right? It's like, there's a download. I just put it out there because take it or leave it. It's okay either way. You guys have them as well. And you can write them to yourself in your own journal. You can share them with your family, or you can give them to the world. Because when we have a realization or an understanding and we use it and it shifts us in some way, that becomes our wisdom. It's just ours. But when we can share it and duplicate it and it becomes your wisdom, guess what? Now it becomes truth. All right. So I invite you to share your wisdom and allow others to experience it. And let's upregulate truth. Sound fun?
Absolutely. Because sharing is caring, right?
100%. Well, those are some great programs. And you guys are on Lori's mailing list, right? So I imagine you'll probably get this fun little list.
You think so, huh? This man, he thinks he really knows me.
Just guessing.
He does. Don't let me fool you. We also want to look at the regeneration programs. Fitness and bioenergetic vitalization have regeneration programs. And what's come up for me when I'm going through these processes, I'll do a scan in bioenergetic vitalization and the pineal gland pops up.
Yeah.
Because my poor little pea brain's trying to wrap its mind around what is all this crystalline information that's coming in that doesn't make so much sense. And the pineal gland can help with that.
Yeah, the pineal gland, remember I spoke earlier about how we transmit and receive. This is a magnetic signature, magnetic information. Magnetic information vibrates at frequencies. Okay, so it's a pulsation. And when we have a thought, and we have done some pineal gland work, in other words, we haven't calcified it, but it's actually functional. The crystalline structure within there actually has its ability to shimmer and shake and do its work. When we have a thought and we have intention behind it, it does create a electrical charge, and that electrical charge is like a piezoelectric effect within the pineal gland. It actually starts the crystalline structures vibrating, and that vibration is literally a magnetic signal pulsating out of you. And this is the way that we transmit. And then those same pulsations from magnetic matches out there hit our body, and our body's this antenna, and it then downregulates a mechanical vibration into those crystalline structures, creating an electrical charge. There's the opposite effect. This is called the piezoelectric effect. And so then that piezoelectric effect, that magnetic signal comes into the pineal gland. It's decoded by our nervous system, and that's information. It's phenomenal. I mean, I'm an engineer. And so the piezoelectric device was created and invented, but based on the pineal gland and how it works. So definitely pay attention to that. Like Lori saw that was coming up. So pay attention to that, because there's information being transmitted, and often we discount what we're sending out into the field through thought alone. So you guys are going to see that list. And as Lori said, the bioenergetic support and the rebalance and the regeneration programs are phenomenal, because our body is regenerating neurological and synaptic connections between the nervous system and tissues. No different than going out working out, working your muscles, and they have to regenerate. Same. So hope you guys had fun. Anybody have fun?
I did. So much fun. So much fun that I think we should do this again next month.
I'm in.
Okay. How about May 8th?
Just before we go to Orlando.
Absolutely.
Hopefully you guys are going to get to go to, are going to come to homecoming next month, right? homecoming event in Orlando, May 12th through the 12th through 14th. No, 11th through
11th through the
11th through 13th. Yeah. Anyway, it's that weekend. Hopefully you come.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
This was great. Thank you so much.
you're welcome
For
so
being
much.
here, everybody. I'm so glad to have been able to share this, and remember that there are seasons coming up for all of us. Give yourself lots of grace, lots of love, lots of patience, and join us here. I love your questions, and hopefully we can dive into some of those things. And hey, and if you guys have some suggestions, some things you're just dying to dive deeper into, hey, share it with us.
Absolutely. Just, you all have my email. I know you do, because I get emails from a lot of you. So reach out, let us know. We're here for you. We're doing this for you guys. We love doing it. Don't let me fool you. Ken and I just love working together. So
This is not work. This is
no,
fun.
it's fun. It is fun. It is so much fun. And we like to create this magic for you. And we want to create magic around the topics that are nearest and dearest to your heart. So I am happy to, somebody just asked me for my email. It's lori.falk@me.com. I'll type it in the chat. You guys all of a sudden are blowing up the chat. And I'm like, I'm trying to talk and read at the same time. And
Yep, that's that wide awareness. Open it up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we love you guys. We're here for you. Reach out. Let us know how we can better serve you. And we look forward to seeing you on the 8th of May for another wonderful Monday Night Magic. Invite your friends. Let them know. This is so much fun. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Bye,
you,
everybody.
thank you, thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you all. Bye. See you again.
Bye.
Night, night.
Thanks, Lori. Big
Thank
love.
you, Ken. Big love.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.